There comes a moment in every life when the quiet voice inside us grows tired of waiting. It whispers that our dreams are not decorations for tomorrow, but responsibilities for today. Too many of us stand at the edge of our own greatness, holding back, hoping for the perfect time, the perfect courage, the perfect sign. But life has never promised perfection. It has only promised opportunity to those who dare to move. The truth is simple and powerful. Nothing changes until you do. Not your circumstances, not your future, not the story your life will tell. The world does not open its doors to hesitation. It opens to footsteps. And sometimes the most important step you will ever take is the one you force yourself to take when fear tells you to stay still. Today is not a day for waiting. Today is the day you decide that action will speak louder than your doubts, and that the life you deserve will begin the moment you choose to rise and move forward. There is a quiet habit many people carry through life, and it is the habit of waiting. Waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right support, waiting for someone to say, "You are ready now." But life rarely pauses to offer that invitation. Days move forward, opportunities pass like wind through open hands, and dreams slowly gather dust while we stand still, believing that someday a signal will arrive. Yet the truth most people discover too late is that permission was never meant to come from the outside. Somewhere along the journey, we were taught to measure our steps by the approval of others. We learned to look around the room before we dared to move, hoping that someone would nod in agreement. But the dreams placed inside a human heart were not designed to wait in a line of opinions. They were placed there because something within you is capable of bringing them to life. And the moment you understand that truth, something powerful begins to shift. You stop asking the world if you are allowed to begin. The world is full of people who once stood where you stand now, people who doubted their voice, questioned their strength, and wondered if they had the right to pursue something greater. But the difference between those who remain where they started and those who build something meaningful is often just one decision. It is the moment when a person stops looking for approval and starts trusting the quiet conviction inside their own soul. You see, waiting for permission can become a comfortable prison. It allows fear to disguise itself as patience. It allows doubt to whisper that preparation is still incomplete. But action does not require perfection. Action requires courage. And courage does not appear because someone grants it to you. Courage grows the moment you decide that your dreams deserve movement instead of hesitation. Every person who has ever created change in their life reached a point where they stopped asking for the green light. They realized that the road would never clear itself. The doubts would never completely disappear. The conditions would never be perfectly arranged. And yet they stepped forward anyway. That single step, small as it may seem, carries a quiet kind of power. It breaks the illusion that you are stuck. When you stop waiting for permission, you also reclaim something that was always yours: responsibility for your own direction. You begin to understand that your life is not a room where you sit and wait to be called. It is a path that opens only when your feet are willing to move. The decision to act becomes a declaration that your dreams matter enough to be pursued, even when the world remains silent. And sometimes the most remarkable transformations begin in that silent moment. No applause, no announcement. Just a person deciding that hesitation has had its time, and that today will belong to action. Because once you stop waiting for permission, you begin to realize something extraordinary. The door you were hoping someone else would open was never locked in the first place. There is a common misunderstanding about courage. Many people believe that courage arrives first and action follows after. They imagine that brave people wake up with a heart free of fear, ready to face the world without hesitation. But the truth about courage is far more human than that. Courage is not the absence of fear, and it is not a feeling that suddenly appears like sunlight after a storm. Courage is a decision. It is the quiet choice to move forward, even when your hands are uncertain and your mind is filled with questions. Fear has a way of convincing us to wait. It whispers that we should prepare a little longer, think a little deeper, or wait for a moment when our confidence feels stronger. But fear is patient. If you continue to wait for the perfect feeling of bravery, you may find yourself waiting far longer than you ever intended. The truth is that courage rarely arrives before the first step. More often, it appears because of the first step. Think about the moments in life when you did something that once seemed impossible. Perhaps you spoke when your voice trembled, tried something new when you doubted yourself, or stepped into a path that felt unfamiliar. In those moments, courage did not arrive before the action. It was born within the action itself. Each small step forward became proof that fear did not have the final word. Human strength grows in motion. When you move despite your uncertainty, something inside you begins to shift. The voice of doubt grows quieter, not because it disappears completely, but because your actions begin to speak louder than your fears. You start to recognize that bravery is not reserved for a special group of fearless people. It belongs to anyone willing to continue walking, even while their heart beats a little faster. Many of the barriers people face are not walls placed by the world, but walls built by hesitation. They stand before opportunities believing they must first feel ready. But readiness is often discovered along the journey, not before it begins. The person who moves forward while still uncertain often discovers strength they never knew they possessed. Every act of courage, no matter how small, builds upon the one before it. One brave decision makes the next one slightly easier. One moment of action becomes evidence that fear can be faced and survived. Over time, what once felt terrifying begins to feel possible, and what once seemed impossible begins to feel within reach. This is how courage truly grows, not through waiting, but through movement, not through perfect confidence, but through repeated acts of determination. The brave life is not built by people who never feel afraid. It is built by people who refuse to let fear decide the direction of their future. So if you find yourself waiting to feel completely ready, remember that courage is not something you must wait to receive. It is something you create through action. The moment you take a step, despite your fear, you are already practicing bravery. And with every step that follows, courage quietly becomes a part of who you are. There is a peculiar weight that doubt carries. It does not arrive loudly, like a storm crashing against the windows. Instead, it slips quietly into the mind, settling into the corners of our thoughts. It asks gentle but dangerous questions. What if you fail? What if you are not good enough? What if this path was never meant for you? These questions often appear when a dream begins to ask something of us, when the time for thinking slowly turns into the time for doing. And in that delicate moment, doubt hopes we will choose stillness. Stillness is the place where doubt grows strongest. When a person remains motionless, the mind begins to circle the same fears again and again. The possibilities that once felt exciting start to feel distant. Confidence weakens, not because it was never there, but because it was never given the chance to prove itself. The longer we stay still, the more convincing doubt begins to sound, until hesitation starts to feel like wisdom. But doubt has a weakness that many people overlook. It cannot survive long in the presence of action. The moment you move, even if your steps are uncertain, something powerful begins to happen. Action interrupts the endless conversation inside the mind. It replaces speculation with experience. Instead of wondering what might happen, you begin discovering what actually happens. The first step rarely feels perfect. In fact, it often feels awkward, uncomfortable, even fragile. Yet that step carries more strength than 1,000 thoughts about what you could do someday. Action changes the relationship you have with your own fears. What once appeared like a towering wall often turns out to be a door that simply needed to be pushed. There is a quiet transformation that begins once movement replaces hesitation. Each effort becomes a small piece of evidence that doubt was not entirely truthful. You begin to see that mistakes are not the end of the road, but part of the road itself. The fear of failure slowly loses its sharp edge when you realize that every attempt teaches you something that stillness never could. Human confidence is not built in the safety of endless planning. It is built through the courage to try, to stumble, to learn, and to continue. Every action, even an imperfect one, weakens the chains that doubt tries to place around the mind. What once felt impossible begins to look manageable. What once seemed frightening begins to feel familiar. And slowly, something remarkable happens. The voice of doubt that once spoke so loudly begins to fade into the background. It does not disappear completely, because doubt is a natural companion on any meaningful journey, but it no longer holds authority. It becomes only a whisper, while your actions become the louder truth. This is why movement matters so deeply. It is not because every action will immediately lead to success, but because every action leads away from paralysis. The person who keeps moving, even slowly, eventually discovers a strength that cannot be found in hesitation. Doubt may visit, but it cannot stay where determination continues to walk forward. So when uncertainty tries to hold you still, remember that the most powerful answer you can give is not another thought. It is a step. Because once you begin to move, the chains of doubt no longer have the power to keep you where you are. There is a quiet truth about progress that the world often forgets to celebrate. Many people are taught to look for grand victories, dramatic changes, and overnight success. They imagine transformation as a single powerful moment where everything suddenly shifts. But life rarely unfolds that way. The most meaningful changes in a person's life are usually built slowly, one steady step at a time, through choices that may appear small to the outside world, but carry enormous meaning within. A single step may not look impressive in the beginning. It may feel too simple, too ordinary to matter. Waking up a little earlier to work toward a dream, speaking one honest sentence when silence would be easier, learning one small lesson after a mistake. These actions do not arrive with applause. They happen quietly, often unnoticed by others. Yet each of these moments carries a kind of courage that is deeper than grand gestures. It is the courage to continue. Great journeys have always begun this way. No mountain has ever been climbed in a single leap. No meaningful life has ever been built in one dramatic effort. Instead, progress unfolds through patience and persistence. One step leads to another, and another follows after that. At first, the path may seem long and uncertain, but with every step forward, distance slowly begins to change. What many people fail to see is that small actions have a powerful way of shaping the person who performs them. Each time you choose to move forward, even in a modest way, you strengthen something inside yourself. Discipline grows quietly. Confidence begins to take root. You start to recognize that progress does not require perfection. It only requires consistency. There will be days when the steps feel easy, when motivation flows naturally and the path seems clear. But there will also be days when movement feels difficult, when doubt whispers that the effort is too small to matter. Those are the moments when small steps become most powerful. Because choosing to continue, even when progress feels slow, is an act of determination that shapes the future. A person who commits to small, steady action begins to build momentum. What once felt challenging gradually becomes familiar. What once required great effort begins to feel like part of a rhythm. Over time, those small steps accumulate in ways that are almost invisible day by day, yet astonishing when viewed across months and years. The beauty of this process is that it places transformation within reach of anyone willing to begin. You do not need extraordinary circumstances to take the first step. You do not need perfect knowledge or flawless confidence. All that is required is the willingness to move. even if the movement feels modest at first. And somewhere along that quiet journey, something remarkable happens. The small steps you once questioned begin to form a path behind you. The distance you have traveled becomes clear, and the person you have become is stronger than the one who started. What once seemed like minor efforts reveal themselves as the building blocks of a powerful transformation. So never underestimate the strength of a small step taken with purpose. Because when those steps are repeated with courage and patience, they carry the power to reshape not only your path, but the very story of your life. There are moments in life when a person begins to doubt their own strength. Not because they have never been strong, but because the weight of hesitation makes them forget what they already carry inside. The world can be loud with expectations, comparisons, and quiet pressures that slowly convince people they are not ready, not capable, or not prepared enough to move forward. And when those thoughts settle deeply enough, a person may begin to believe that the strength they need is something they must search for somewhere outside themselves. But strength has never truly lived outside of you. It has always been present, waiting beneath the surface of your fears and uncertainties. The same spirit that helped you survive difficult days, the same resilience that carried you through moments you once thought you could not endure, still exists within you now. It may feel hidden at times, but it has never disappeared. Often it only waits for you to call upon it again. Many people imagine strength as something dramatic, something that appears only in heroic moments. Yet real strength is often much quieter. It lives in the decision to try again after disappointment. It appears when a person continues forward even while doubt whispers that stopping would be easier. It shows itself in persistence, in patience, and in the willingness to rise even when confidence feels fragile. Hesitation has a way of making us forget these truths. It encourages the mind to focus only on what might go wrong. It reminds us of past mistakes and unanswered questions. Over time, hesitation begins to feel like protection, as if standing still might somehow keep us safe from failure or embarrassment. But the safety it offers is an illusion, because remaining still slowly distances us from the life we hope to create. The truth is that the strength you seek does not appear after the fear disappears. It appears when you decide to move despite the fear. Strength grows through action, through the quiet determination to keep going even when certainty has not fully arrived. Each time you push yourself to take a step forward, you remind your spirit of what it has always been capable of doing. Think of the times when life placed challenges before you that once seemed overwhelming. Perhaps there were moments when you believed you would not be able to endure what was happening around you. Yet somehow, step by step, you moved through those experiences. You adapted, you learned, and you continued. That same resilience has not left you. It remains part of who you are. Sometimes the greatest challenge is simply remembering that truth. When hesitation grows heavy, when doubt clouds your confidence, the most important action you can take is to gently but firmly push yourself forward, not because you feel perfectly prepared, but because you trust that the strength within you will rise as you move. Human potential often reveals itself only after effort begins. The moment you decide to act, something inside you awakens. The part of you that understands persistence, the part that refuses to surrender to fear, begins to guide your steps again. What once felt intimidating slowly becomes manageable, and what once seemed impossible begins to look within reach. So when hesitation tries to convince you that you are not strong enough, remember that the evidence of your strength already exists in your past and in your spirit. The courage you need has never been missing. It only waits for you to step forward and allow it to rise once more. Pain has a way of entering our lives without invitation. It does not knock politely at the door or ask if the timing is convenient. It arrives through disappointment, loss, rejection, and moments when life feels heavier than we ever expected it to be. In those seasons, it can seem as though pain exists only to slow us down, to place weight on our shoulders, and make the path forward feel more difficult. Many people spend years trying to escape it, believing that progress can only happen in the absence of struggle. Yet pain carries a strange and powerful truth within it. Hidden beneath its discomfort is a kind of energy, a force that can either hold us still or push us forward. The difference lies in how we choose to face it. When pain is ignored or buried, it often grows heavier. But when it is acknowledged and understood, it begins to change its shape. What once felt like a burden slowly reveals itself as a source of strength. Every person carries stories of moments that tested their spirit, times when things did not go as planned, when doors closed unexpectedly, or when the world felt unkind and unfair. Those experiences may have left marks on the heart, but they also left something else behind. They left wisdom, resilience, and a deeper understanding of what it means to endure. Pain, in its quiet way, teaches lessons that comfort never could. It is often through hardship that people discover what truly matters to them. Struggle sharpens our awareness of our own potential. It forces us to examine the path we are walking and ask ourselves whether we are living with intention or merely drifting with circumstance. In that moment of reflection, something begins to stir. A determination forms, not out of ease, but out of the realization that difficulty does not have to define the end of the story. Some of the most powerful movements in a person's life begin after a painful chapter, not because the pain was desired, but because it awakened something that had been waiting beneath the surface. Disappointment can awaken ambition, rejection can strengthen resolve, loss can deepen gratitude and clarity. These experiences reshape our understanding of ourselves and reveal strengths that might otherwise have remained hidden. The fire that pain creates can be destructive if it is left without direction. But when that fire is guided toward purpose, it becomes something entirely different. It becomes motivation. It becomes the quiet voice that says, "You have already endured so much, and you are still here. Keep moving." That realization carries a kind of power that comfort alone could never provide. When people learn to transform their struggles into fuel, they begin to see their past differently. The difficult moments no longer appear only as wounds. They begin to look like stepping stones that prepared them for the strength they carry today. What once seemed like obstacles slowly reveal themselves as experiences that shaped character and resilience. The truth is that pain will visit every life in some form. It is part of the human journey, but it does not have to become a permanent shadow. Within every struggle exists the possibility of growth if we choose to rise with the lessons it offers. When you decide to use your pain as momentum instead of allowing it to hold you still, something powerful begins to unfold. The very experiences that once threatened to break your spirit can become the force that pushes you forward. And when that transformation happens, the story of your struggle becomes the foundation of your progress. Fear has a quiet and persuasive voice. It does not always shout or demand attention. Instead, it speaks gently, almost reasonably, offering explanations for why today might not be the right day to begin. It suggests that waiting a little longer could be wiser, that comfort is safer than risk, that staying where you are may protect you from disappointment. And because that voice sounds calm and logical, many people begin to treat it like a trusted advisor. Over time, a silent negotiation begins. A person tells themselves they will start tomorrow or next week, or when circumstances feel more certain. Fear responds with another suggestion, another delay, another reason to remain still. What begins as a brief hesitation slowly turns into a habit of postponement. Days pass, then months, and sometimes even years, while dreams remain quietly waiting in the background. The trouble with negotiating with fear is that fear is never satisfied. It always asks for a little more caution, a little more preparation, a little more time. If you listen closely, you will notice that the conversation never truly ends. Every time you think you have found the perfect moment to act, fear introduces a new concern to consider. It promises safety, but the safety it offers often comes at the cost of progress. Yet there is something important to understand about fear. Its power depends entirely on your willingness to listen without challenge. Fear grows stronger when it is treated like the final authority in your decisions. But the moment you stop debating with it and begin to move forward, its influence begins to fade. Action changes the entire conversation. When you take a step, even a small one, you interrupt the endless cycle of hesitation. Fear may still whisper in the background, reminding you of possible difficulties, but your actions begin to speak louder than its warnings. Each movement forward becomes a quiet declaration that fear will no longer determine the direction of your life. This does not mean fear disappears completely. Fear is a natural companion to any meaningful journey. It often appears when you are about to do something important, something that challenges your comfort and stretches your abilities. But fear does not have to become the voice that guides your choices. It can exist without controlling your steps. Many of the opportunities people miss in life are not lost because they lacked talent or potential. They are lost because fear convinced them to keep negotiating instead of acting. The truth is that clarity, confidence, and strength often appear after movement begins, not before. The person who waits for fear to disappear may wait forever. When you stop negotiating with fear, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to realize that fear's predictions are rarely as powerful as your ability to face them. Situations that once seemed intimidating begin to feel manageable. Challenges that once felt overwhelming become opportunities for growth. The most powerful response to fear has never been argument or avoidance. It has always been action. Every step you take forward reduces fear's control over your decisions. Every effort reminds you that your future is shaped by courage, not hesitation. And as you continue to move, fear slowly learns something it never expected. It learns that its voice may still exist, but it no longer has the power to keep you standing still. There is a beautiful moment when inspiration first touches the human spirit. It might arrive through a powerful idea, a dream that refuses to stay quiet, or a vision of a life that feels fuller and more meaningful than the one we are living now. In that moment, everything feels possible. The mind fills with excitement, and the heart begins to imagine a future shaped by purpose and achievement. Inspiration is powerful because it awakens something within us that had been waiting to rise. But inspiration, as powerful as it is, has a gentle weakness. It is often temporary. It comes like a spark in the darkness, bright and energizing, but if nothing follows it, that spark slowly fades. Many people experience moments of inspiration throughout their lives. They feel the excitement of new goals, new ambitions, new beginnings. Yet, without something steady to support it, that excitement slowly dissolves into routine, and the dream quietly returns to the background of their thoughts. This is where discipline begins to reveal its quiet strength. Discipline does not arrive with the same emotional excitement as inspiration. It is calmer, steadier, and often less glamorous. Discipline asks you to continue even when the first wave of motivation has passed. It asks you to show up when the work feels ordinary, when progress seems slow, and when no one is watching your efforts. The truth about meaningful achievement is that it rarely comes from moments of passion alone. Passion may begin the journey, but discipline is what carries it forward day after day. It is the decision to act consistently, even when the excitement of the beginning has softened. Discipline transforms a dream from something you think about into something you build. Consider how anything meaningful in life is created. A strong skill, a successful project, a fulfilled purpose. None of these are built in a single burst of inspiration. They are shaped through repeated effort. Small actions, taken consistently, slowly gather strength over time. What once felt difficult begins to feel familiar. What once required great effort becomes part of a rhythm that moves your life forward. Discipline also teaches patience, something that inspiration alone cannot provide. Dreams often feel urgent when they first appear. We want immediate progress, immediate proof that our efforts will succeed. But real growth unfolds gradually. Discipline reminds us that progress does not need to be fast to be meaningful. What matters most is that the movement continues. There will be days when the spark of inspiration feels distant, days when the path feels long and the results feel far away. Those are the moments when discipline becomes most valuable, because discipline is not dependent on emotion. It does not ask whether you feel motivated. It simply asks whether you are willing to continue. And when a person learns to rely on discipline, something powerful begins to take shape. The dream that once existed only in imagination begins to transform into reality. Step by step, effort by effort, the vision slowly becomes something tangible. What once seemed distant begins to stand within reach. Inspiration may light the fire, but discipline is what keeps it alive through the long nights and quiet mornings. It is the steady force that turns hope into progress and ideas into accomplishment. And when you allow discipline to guide your actions, your dreams stop being distant wishes and begin to take their place in the real world you are building. There is a quiet distance between the life people imagine and the life they are currently living. In that distance lives possibility, hope, and sometimes a deep longing for something greater. Many people carry clear visions of who they could become, what they could achieve, and the kind of life they would like to build. They picture brighter days, meaningful work, stronger confidence, and a sense of purpose that fills their lives with direction. Yet for many, that vision remains in the future, always waiting for the right moment to begin. It is easy to believe that the future begins someday later. Tomorrow feels like a comfortable place to place our ambitions. Tomorrow seems patient and full of time. We promise ourselves that we will start when the circumstances improve, when we feel more prepared, when life becomes less complicated. But tomorrow has a quiet habit of moving further away each time we delay. The days continue to pass, and the future we imagine slowly turns into something we keep postponing rather than creating. What many people eventually discover is that the future does not arrive fully formed. It is not something that appears suddenly one morning while we are waiting. The future grows out of the decisions we make today. It is shaped by the actions we choose in the present moment. Every direction we take, every effort we make, every step forward becomes a small piece of the life we will eventually live. The distance between where you are now and where you want to be often feels large. When people look at their dreams from the starting point, the path ahead can appear overwhelming. They imagine the many steps it might take, the obstacles that could appear, and the uncertainty that lies along the way. Because of this, they sometimes hesitate, believing that they must first understand the entire journey before they begin. But the truth is that most meaningful journeys reveal themselves step by step. Clarity does not always appear before movement. Often it appears because of movement. The person who begins with a single action starts to see possibilities that were invisible before. Opportunities begin to appear. Confidence begins to grow. The path slowly becomes clearer because progress is already in motion. The first step carries a special kind of power. It may seem small compared to the dream itself, but it breaks the barrier between intention and action. It transforms hope into effort. Once that first step is taken, the dream is no longer just an idea living in the mind. It becomes something real, something that has begun to take shape in the world. Every person who has built something meaningful once stood at that same beginning. They looked at the distance between their present and their vision, and they faced the same choice that stands before all of us. They could wait for the perfect moment, or they could begin where they were. The people who eventually shaped their futures were not always the most certain or the most confident. They were simply the ones who chose to start, and once they started, something changed. The future they had imagined stopped being a distant picture. It slowly became a living reality, formed through daily effort and steady progress. The life they once hoped for began to grow out of the actions they were willing to take. Your future is waiting in exactly the same way, not in a distant tomorrow, but in the choices you make today. The moment you decide to move, even in a small way, you begin building the life that once existed only in your imagination. And that first step, quiet as it may seem, is the moment your future truly begins.